Salute.
Salute.
That's the best way to start an interview with tequila.
For sure. All right, welcome to Electric Elevation Podcast. Today I have my special guest in the building, Reyes Poetry. How you doing?
I'm good with this herradura. I'm good.
He came with bearing gifts.
Always gotta show up with gifts.
Let me see.
It's
So
all
they can see
you.
it
There you
good.
go. It's all you.
It's very smooth. I gotta check it out. It's available at all the stores.
Yeah, it's at every liquor store.
Every liquor store.
At least every liquor store that I've been to purchase it, it's been there. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's under Brown Foreman, which also has Jack Daniels, Limador, but Herradura is their main premium tequila.
Okay. So let's get started. Before we talk about the current, we're gonna go all the way back. So I know you founder of Culture Creators and all of that. So what made you get into arts initially? So when you were younger, you were always into poetry, the arts?
I mean, like, it's a weird thing, right? So I was raised in the 90s. I was raised in Saginaw. That's where I grew up.
Okay.
And, you know, one of the things I think, and, you know, it'll connect to We Are Culture Creators at some point, when you're creating, like, sometimes just having mentors or people that just look out for you, right? Because in the 90s, just like everywhere else in the U.S., right, like, you know, you're in the center of, like, a lot of gang culture, a lot of drug culture. Violence was, like, you know, at a pretty high level pretty much across the state, whether you were in Flint, Saginaw, Muskegon, and obviously in Detroit.
Right.
So, you know, I had some family members that ended up getting incarcerated when I was 13, and he was a little bit older than me. And I think, you know, him going through that process and, you know, losing one of my close friends when I was younger kind of steered me away from the direction of kind of like getting into, I can swear in here?
Yeah.
Okay. Trying to get into like the fuckery and, you know, sports became like the thing that I really love to do, you know, and so, you know, Saginaw is where Draymond Green's from. Earlier than that, Jay Rich, who, you know, the dunk contest winner. So I wanted to play sports. And then really early, like in 6th, 7th grade, probably 7th grade, I had a friend that dunked in 7th grade. And I realized right away I was not going to play sports past high school or middle school.
Okay.
And so then art became an option, right? So for me, I had an 8th grade teacher at North Middle School, and I wrote a poem. And she encouraged me and was just like, hey, you know, maybe you should think about doing poetry. And then I just left it because, you know, at that time I didn't see any, you know, this is prior to YouTube, and even the internet was just very early in a sense. So I didn't really realize there was an option to do art, but I had people that encouraged me in Saginaw. So fast forward, I ended up in Chicago for 13 years. But in Chicago, the mentors I had there, I ran a youth center called Bate Urbano, which was in a Puerto Rican neighborhood. And pretty much every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we were doing cultural events. So we were doing poetry, we were doing films, we were doing a hip-hop night. At that time, it was a little bit more like underground, boom bap, type of rap. And that slowly led me to think about doing my own work. And so probably around 19 years old, I got booked for my first show. It was a college show.
Okay. What college was it?
It was Delta College in Saginaw.
Okay.
It was a local college where I was from.
Okay.
And then I got booked secondary at a school in Chicago for my second gig. And then pretty soon I just started to kind of see poetry as an option to be able to have a career. Because obviously I love doing art and I want to do art. But then there's the other side where you still have to pay your bills, right? And so early on, that part of my life, I spent about 13 years in Chicago, lived in New York for a few years, lived overseas in Spain. And poetry was my main tool to earn a living. But fast forward, I was speaking at Jackson State Prison, and my ex-girlfriend, who I actually moved here for, she was speaking at Jackson State Prison as well with a program. We met in Detroit, became an option. I wanted to be home. I wanted to be back in my home state. And even though we split up, she's the other founder of We Are Culture Creators. We kept We Are Culture Creators alive because we thought it was important. And through that process, I kind of wanted to help other artists and creatives. And so I kind of stepped down from doing poetry myself and started to facilitate this idea of creating an organization. And when it started, it was more just me trying to manage. I mean, you manage some artists, obviously. And I was doing that, and it didn't work the way I wanted to go. And sometimes that's how it is. Things you fail, but other doors open.
For sure.
And so a door opened up where someone was like, hey, what you're doing with these young folks as far as art and culture, you can get grant money for that. And I had no idea of thinking about that, even though I did come from a nonprofit background in Chicago. Mm-hmm. I didn't think for myself to do it. And so we applied for this grant called My Brother's Keeper, which helped young artists of color. And we won that grant. And then we kind of steered away from nonprofit world for a little bit and started doing independent work because we just feel like we didn't fit. And fast forward, we have this organization now that is a 501c3, which means we're federally recognized. But we also run a parallel LLC, which allows for our young people to grow up from 18 to 24 and then start working with us on the business side after they kind of graduate, in a sense, out of being 24. And so our nonprofit operates with some grant money, but we do a lot of our own fundraising by doing shows, producing. We do 100 events across the globe. We've done stuff in Paris, London, Berlin, Mexico City, Guadalajara, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic. But our home base for work is here in Detroit. And, I'm a business partner and one of the owners of Backwoods and Bonfires, which is a festival here, which our organization co-founded with a few other folks, including Crowd Freak. And Curtis over there.
Shout out to Curtis Lamar.
Yeah, so part of that work birthed a bunch of other work.
For sure.
And I think in the nonprofit space, especially in arts, we depend on funding. And if you look at the current political climate, a lot of the federal dollars are being cut for arts. Mm-hmm. But because we operate in this weird kind of commercial space as well, we're able to still raise some of that funds that we would lose from grants and kind of do commercial contracts. So part of one of our projects with Herradura Tequila and Jack Daniels was a contract, right? It's not a donation or a sponsorship in the sense of a traditional, here's some money. It's like, oh, we really love your work and we want to pay you for your work to do some cool stuff in the city and support your work. And then in turn, we've been able to learn the process of tequila, learn the history of Herradura in particular, take a few people to Mexico. We just recently booked an artist called Rosa Pistola, who was booked out of Mexico City, and we booked her here at the Lincoln Factory. So just trying to start those exchanges and then bringing Detroit artists, not just Latino artists, but also black DJs from Detroit and trying to get them into Mexico City, Guadalajara, taking them overseas. We took a group to Dominican Republic. We've taken a group to Paris. We've taken a group to Berlin. And making those connections for our young creatives here to have opportunity in music, art, and culture. Because, where we're from, we don't necessarily get to see black folks and Latino folks traveling at 18, 19, right? These kids are 18, 19, 20 years old, and they've already been to Europe twice, toured, and done performances. So part of our work with culture creators, my own personal work, has been just to help facilitate that. And then obviously I get to, as an artist, contribute and be a part of some of that stuff.
Right. So I'm going to tell the story about how we met. So I met Reyes in 2019.
Pre-COVID. It was pre-COVID. COVID
at the Fountain Hotel.
Foundation
Hotel.
Yep.
And La Brittany was having a show.
Yep.
And this is when I first started my podcast. So I was there doing footage and everything. And he embraced me. They want to say, what are you doing? You doing a podcast? I was able to come where you guys were in the backstage and meet all the people. And we just been locked in ever since. And then I came on to the tell us about the house that you first bought for We Are Culture Creators.
So we have a house, we call it the Culture House. It really is kind of one, it has a few residents almost consistently for the last 11 years. There's usually some circulation of young people living in the house, and then I live in the house next door. So it's kind of like a launching pad for young creatives if they need an opportunity to get some footing that want to contribute. But the whole entire house actually has a small studio. We used to shoot a lot more video there. Now we have a different house for that we call the Photo House, which Barely Hispanic, Xavier Cuevas, shout out to him. He runs that space. And a lot of events are held there by Nonstop Hip Hop, which is Damasio Soto's group who I work with and manage. But the Culture House itself just has a backyard. We kind of do, in the summer, we'll barbecue and, you can come over and eat. We cook a lot of food all through the year. We do, a midnight Thanksgiving, which is, in case after you get bored with your family, or maybe we really started because a lot of the young people we work with didn't really go home.
Right.
And so we were like, well, let's just do a midnight Thanksgiving, and we just cook at midnight and do a spread, Like I said, my business partner is a black woman from Detroit, so her and her dad will help and cook some soul food, and we'll do the whole Thanksgiving spread, and it's kind of just a space. Like now, a lot of people are talking about this thing called third spaces, and it's really a third space. So if you're not home, you can be there, you can connect, and then we throw events. We host small events. Not that it's super big. We kind of outgrew the space,
right?
Because we started. That was our only venue for the first 4 years of we had.
Backwards.
Yeah, I mean for anything, right? For anything.
So when I first came for the first time, it was like super lit. It was like a lot of people from the underground scene, because I had been interviewing different artists and stuff, and I came, I'm like, damn, this is dope. It was super lit. It's kind of in the Southwest, right?
Yeah, so it's like in an area called Chazy County, Forest City. So that's the farmhouse. So that's our other house.
Okay, that's the first one I went to.
Yeah, but it's similar to it's the same concept as the Culture House. They're all very. So the photo house down the street from that. So they're all very similar in that way. So yeah, so that's what we had Backwoods.
And I'm like, this is awesome. It's a great place and an outlet for artists to come and express themselves. And it's a lot of artists, artsy artists, like not just musicians, but painters, people that do visual arts, poets, rappers, singers. So it was like a variety and a mixture of different people, different cultures. The name is great. We are culture creators. You get a variety. Yeah. So you had everybody doing everything. It was just super cool. So let everybody know how the first Backwood and Bonfire started.
Yeah, so one of the things is for us, collaboration is always huge. And I think in our city, I don't know, I feel like Detroit is definitely a city where a lot of people work together, but I can also understand and be sympathetic to somebody who feels like, nobody wants to help me or support me, because you might feel isolated, and that could be true, because you're in a pocket kind of working really hard on your own and you don't feel supported. So I do know that exists, but in Culture Creators, and we are Culture Creators, we really try to, our whole ethos is to collaborate and build with each other. So I went and met this guy named Curtis Lamar, and he ran Crowd Freak, and some of my young people were performing there, and they were telling me about his shows, and I'm like, man, let me go meet this person. So I just went up and introduced myself and said, hey, I'm Reyes Poetry. I have a collective, and we do some work, and some of my young guys have performed at some of your stuff. I'd love to just get lunch, get some tacos, and connect. So we met, and you could tell right away with a person sometimes that natural solidarity and brotherhood. And the minute we started talking, I could feel that positivity and that energy. So I was like, hey, let me give you a tour of this house that we own. And I remember when we first bought that house. So to describe the house, it's a little tiny house that we basically bought on the Wayne County auction, right? For I think it was maybe $500, because it was going to be demoed. Nobody wanted it. It had been I think the person living there before,
only $500.
Yeah, and it was at a time where I think the city just wanted to get rid of it. The county wanted to get rid of it. So we purchased it, and I took them there, but it was it's a weird shape because it's trapped between railroad tracks, a viaduct, alley, and it's isolated in a sense. So it's think of a city lot that's 4 lots large, but a triangle. So it's kind of cornered.
Right.
And it has this little house, little 2-bedroom. And I showed him the space. We had built a stage and stuff because we were doing small shows, nothing big, maybe 30, 40 people. And he was like, this was 6 weeks before we actually did Backwoods. He goes, you ever think about doing a festival? And I'm like, yeah, we thought about it, but I don't know. It's not anything we can do right now. He goes, let's do a 420 festival. So literally in six weeks, we planned it. And the first one was really successful. We booked 200 local artists that were all Detroit artists. And I don't know, maybe we had 800 people, and we thought it was a huge success, right? Because we had never had 800 people. I think, I don't know Curtis's whole history, but I know from when I met him, 200 people was probably our biggest shows. We're 200, 300 people, that's great. But to have 800 people come through the door and actually pay for tickets, and, we built the whole infrastructure. We had vendors, but it was really still in a few city lots.
Right.
So that beginning was the birth of the festival, and then we did it again the next year, and it grew a little bit more. We might have had 1,200 people, and then we ended up booking Doja Cat, and we booked Doja Cat because we brought
before she blew up too.
Yeah, it was right before
when she first came out.
Yeah, she had did, I think that was it Moo. This was the song.
Yeah,
that's how we booked her off that Moo song. So, and we had brought in 50 Bars and our friend Danny, who were also doing some nightlife stuff, and they came in as a partner. So that was our first kind of third and fourth business partner. And they were able to help us professionalize. And and elevate in a way we weren't doing.
Right.
They
Shout
had
out to 50 Bars.
They had different experiences than us, and they had a different expertise, and I was able to learn from them a different side of the business that I didn't know. And then it helped us grow again. And then we got just to a point where the city was pressuring us, where we were growing so large that it wasn't safe. And I don't mean safe for violence, because we haven't had violence at Backwoods in that way. Just more safe for people as far as like capacity. Because we were literally, neighbors around were parking. People are parking in their lots. And, we're trying to be respectful of the neighborhood. But we're growing so fast. And eventually the city shut us down, right? And said, hey, you can't do this. So we found a secondary location, which was 5 times bigger, over on 7 Mile. Everything went through. We got our permits. We professionalized it. We got our insurance. We did all the things we needed to do. And then DPD couldn't sign off on it. They weren't willing to. They were like, hey, we don't have the capacity. So the city said, just take it back to where you got it. But by then we had extended into like 9 city lots. So I think we had Y&J that year. And it just extended into, and it felt, to me, that's the favorite Backwoods we ever did, because it's the middle of a neighborhood. We're under a bridge, under a viaduct. We got 3 stages. Our original location is now just the VIP location because it's grown that big. And it felt really beautiful, and there was no acts of violence. Everybody was chill, and I think the police were surprised by that. But in the city, being in city politics and understanding the way that the city views particularly black artists and rap in particular, there is a difficulty in producing as a black producer, and like to see my business partners, because like Backwoods Bonfire is a black owned company. I'm one of the only non-black members of the ownership. But to see how our events have to like battle to and I get it, there's a balance, because we all know kind of like what the content of some of the artists that we really fuck with is about, but not every conversation when it comes to rap has to be about the dangerous side of what can happen, because we've seen a bunch of different, and one of the criticisms yesterday, we were in a conversation with one of the mayoral candidates, and somebody had brought up, you can bring all these artists from outside of Detroit and have these concerts, but the minute it's a Detroit artist, there's just this extra look of critique on what's happening, and that means police presence, permitting, all these things that if you bring somebody from out of town, you don't get. So I think I say all that to say, like, with Backwoods and Bonfires, I'm really proud of the environment we create, because what we try to do as we've grown from the Russell and now we're in Eastern Market, we really want it to be like an experiential kind of like an experience for you to go. Like, even though we want to highlight the artists, we want you to also feel good about the people that are in costumes, the design, the set design, the way the lighting is, the way you experience Backwoods. And I don't think a lot of black-focused events in our city are able to do that. And I'm proud that as a collective, we've decided that just as important as the artist is to try to curate an environment where you feel good, where people can feel beautiful and safe, where you can experience cannabis in a safe way, where you can go and be in a place with folks like you, and the artists reflect your city, So we highlight a lot of Detroit artists, and we love that a part of our work. We still have national acts that are on the bill, but we don't also want to overlook, because a lot of times festivals come in, and they're bringing national acts, and it's really hard to get our artists from Detroit on the bill, even though people are coming here to take kind of like funds from our community in a sense, right? We're paying tickets and we don't get to see our artists on there. So I feel like part of our work at Backwoods and Bonfires and We Are Culture Creators and Crowd Freak and some of the other groups is very intentional at making sure that Detroit is represented in our work. And we almost like double down in that, in a sense. Like, we're like, hey, this is a Detroit festival where you can see Detroit artists. Sure. You can definitely get a flavor of a national artist, but we still want to highlight the artists that we that are from our city, in a sense,
Okay, so regarding the artists that actually perform, some of the local artists that perform on there, do you what's the most success story that you heard from exposure from an artist that actually got a slot and performed?
I think like one thing for us is like, I feel like with something like Backwoods and Bonfires, the experience of creating like an environment for an artist to have a large crowd, right?
Right.
And I think, like, not to say that some of the upcoming artists aren't able to get their own crowd, and so I don't want to speak to just one artist. But thinking about as a collective, it's one of the places where you could be right on the cusp, and you're gonna have a few thousand people watching you perform.
But let me ask you this though.
Sure.
Is it more so? Do you think it's more so a whole bunch of other rappers you're rapping in front of, or is actual consumers and other people too?
I mean, there's not 4,000 rappers in the crowd. Like, I mean, that's like,
so it's like it's gotten up to like 4,000.
I think right now, we're pushing closer to 7.
Oh, okay.
But when you say 7, you got to talk about the collective day,
right?
Because not everybody is staying the whole day,
right? I came to the last one; it was lit.
Yeah, so like I think we might get a critical mass throughout. I don't want to be misquoted, but we definitely have a crowd from the front of the stage all the way to the back, right?
And you have multiple stages. You have like the
5.
main stage. Over here, the one in the inside.
You have the VIP ones, and then we have like little cutaways. If you take your time at Backwoods and really walk through, we cut past through like the little forested area, and we have stages back there. We had a decompression zone where you could sit down and you could like cool down. There was water. There's things like to just chill out. So I would say like our event. There was a lot of rappers and performers. I mean, we have a huge consumer base that is just coming out because the other element is the cannabis side of it, right? So people aren't coming just to see rappers; they're coming also to enjoy the city,
cannabis, the vendors,
the food. So I think it's not a showcase in a sense. You know what I mean?
Right.
A showcase, you might end up with 45 rappers, in the crowd, watching each other. But I feel like. The next step for us, I think, is to expand the experience part. And so people understand, like, we're doing that ourselves. Like, I'm one of the designers of the footprint, so I'm up there building stuff. I mean, it's our friends that are, they're on staff, but it's still, like, the homies that are helping me, like, climb up the ladder and, like, put the signs up. So it's not like we pay a separate production company. It's us.
Right.
And so I think we're always trying to improve the experience. And this year, we're hoping to add some other elements that, one, make it kind of more of a festive environment and improve on that part, but also give you some other little secret areas where you can discover some chill out areas where you can relax and maybe get a different vibe than what's on the main stage or the second stage or the VIP stage. Awesome. Historically, we have five stages, but they're all different.
This year, is it going to be at the same place?
Yeah, it's at Eastern Market.
It's a pretty big place.
Yeah, it's at Eastern Market. We have 2 lots that we really operate out of. So. And
I commend you guys. Congrats. I've seen it from the beginning. From 2019 to what it has grew to now. I was at the first one, like you said, with Doja Cat. This is before Doja Cat was even famous. Mm-hmm. I know you look back like, wow, we booked her before she was even.
That's the thing you're trying to do, right? Is that you're trying to catch them. You're trying to catch them in that mid level,
Right.
But then a part of like, part of like the work coming out of that though, then has allowed us, and I say us and me, as we are culture creators, to start producing. So like after Backwoods, and that was one opportunity, we started working with the Detroit Pistons. We started working with all these different brands that would bring us on. Like, so, this week coming up is Movement, right? And we're working on a project with Jars. And Jars is doing the first retail pop-up in cannabis in the city that's a legitimate legal place. And literally it's across the street from Movement. And we're basically booking 3 days of DJs. We have another series called Fiesta House, which is more Latin house music. And that's travels. Like we did. So when the Pistons played the Bulls in Paris, we produced like 5 underground shows that we just kind of did. Awesome. We partnered with a few people from Chicago and just created environments. So like Detroit's biggest export besides cars, right? Cars, everybody knows cars. It's like culture, right? Like the Detroit culture permeates. And then when you say Detroit culture, you're talking about black culture, permeates across the world. And people emulate it, copy it, want to be a part of it, like, even if we think about techno music, it's black music, right? The first techno DJs, the first techno song is made in Detroit. And then it's exported to Europe, and then it's like, oh, it's this world thing. But really, I had someone tell me, Cornelius, he's the one who runs the Techno Museum. If you didn't know, there's a Techno Museum in Detroit, and it's based off of the guys from Underground Resistance. Is one of the first Detroit techno collectives. And he told me, like, when techno was being made, house music was being made, and hip hop was being made, he was like, we didn't distinct from it. It was all black music. We didn't, because there was no radio placement for rap. Right. Rap was still an underground production-based genre. So I think that's an interesting element when I'm doing global work, is that even as a Latino, as somebody who's Mexican, I want to still highlight, like, I don't want to recreate a LA event or a Miami event, because that's not who we are. We're from Detroit, and we have our own musical tradition. I want to double down into ghetto tech. I want to double down into techno, house. I want to double down into hip hop.
We got our own sound as well.
Yes, and even on the rap scene, right? Like the Detroit rappers, you know, like whether it's Vezzo or T Grizzly or any of the younger guys coming up, that has its own pocket. And then you also have the antithesis to that, which follows like the Jay Dilla tradition, which has a more kind of wavy sound. These younger artists that are, I don't want to call it boom bap because that's like the word for my generation, but just has a different sound, a different topics. And I think that's the diversity of Detroit music, is that, yes, you have, right now, the street shit is really winning, and that's good and positive for our city. But at the same time, you have the other narrative that's still very much Detroit black culture on the other side. And then, you know, being in Southwest, you know, like an artist like Damasio, who's creating at a high level from a perspective of a Mexican and Puerto Rican, loving hip-hop, making beats, rapping, and being within that culture. And he's a visual artist, right?
He's excellent. He's a great visual artist.
So, like, I think, like, that part of our story is important. So, you know, this new position as the global...
Wait a minute, let me introduce that. So, Reyes Poetry is now the Visit Detroit Global Ambassador.
Underground ambassador. Yeah, it's close. So,
tell
us.
It's
hard. And it might be like reversed. I don't remember. But now we're like a few cups ahead of that.
Yeah.
So now, so I think like Visit Detroit is our, basically think of our tourism page.
Okay.
That highlights Detroit and really their role outside of just the page. People think it's just a page, but outside of that, their role in tourism is to attract conferences, is to attract things like the NFL draft, to attract like all of the things that happen on a national level that need a place, that need a conference center, that need hotel rooms. So they attract them to Detroit. That's their gig, right? So they try to bring things to Detroit. Their online presence highlights Detroit, and I think the vision that team has at Visit Detroit to bring in particularly storytellers, like I think I don't consider myself an influencer. I consider myself more of a storyteller. But you know, there's other folks that work within Visit Detroit that are legitimate influencers, right? That's what they do as their gig, and it's all their work is shared on that page. So for me, I'm the new Global Underground Ambassador. And one responsibility is to highlight Detroit stuff that doesn't get looked at a lot, right? So, you know, my goal right now is to kind of show, if you want to purchase cannabis in the city, how do you do that legally? Like, right, what is the 101? You might be visiting from Berlin and not really know, so I want to show you that. The other side is to show the community pockets that, because downtown is a lot of the focus of our work in Detroit, but there's communities all over the city that are doing really amazing work. And I want to highlight those communities, right, that are a little bit outside of the downtown footprint, that don't get as much resources, that don't get as much hype, but are really the most important piece. Because without those neighborhoods, what is Detroit, right? It's just some downtown where there's some shops. Like, what is Detroit? So besides that role, then on the other side is also to take Detroit culture around the world. And so we were just in Mexico City. And I produced 2 events in Mexico City and produced 2 events in Guadalajara, Mexico.
Awesome.
And bring some of those artists here. We have plans to be in Paris with one of our DJs this summer who's going to be doing a few events out there. And, you know, I was able to go to north of Manchester to watch Burnley, who Visit Detroit sponsors that soccer team.
Okay.
And we were able to visit and go to their town, and, you know, they gave us a tour, gave us some jerseys. I never experienced a football game or soccer game, and Europe. And so I was able to take 7 of our team and go and shoot video and content and learn about that sport, in particular the relationship between Burnley and Visit Detroit sponsoring them, and why we'd want to do that is because we want to be able to attract that global market. So like my role then is to help produce those type of things across and show the work that we're doing in Detroit to the world. So I'm trying to highlight that pocket of our city, you know? And so even though I'll do some stuff on like downtown stuff, I want to, you know, highlight some of the Piston stuff. I also want to delve into those spaces that, you know, we don't get to tell those stories too much, because that's not necessarily what people know that are visiting Detroit, right? You might stay right in downtown. You might go to a game. Think about somebody who drives 3 hours to watch a Pistons game. They may really just go to that game, stay around, and then go home.
Right.
They may not even be aware that all this other cultural stuff is happening. So I think that's an important piece of my role.
So when you go on the website, it'll say like events near you and have the dates. And
they have like they're a very busy page. Okay. So they're posting stuff every day, content every day. They're showing where to go. Like there's other DJs and other influencers that are posting to let you know, like, hey, where do you get the best food? What's the best underground venues? What are the best DJ spaces? Who are the DJs to look for? I'm working on a series right now that's going to be focusing on Detroit rap. Okay. And more, I want to hear from Detroit rappers, like, who do they listen to?
Right.
Who are the artists in Detroit we should be listening to?
Right.
And that's anywhere from Payroll all the way down to, like, the newest artists coming up.
Shout out to the Bank Boys. Shout out to Large Amount.
So, like, to me, that's what I want to be doing. I think also, like, someone like Nisha Nashay, maybe doing a conversation with her about, like, what are the influences in Detroit that you're listening to or people should know about.
Right.
Because, you know, as much as our music and rap gets highlighted, on the commercial side, sometimes it's overlooked and taken for granted. Because they make Detroit actually a very vibrant place, it kind of can get overlooked as, like, maybe not, because there's a difference between folk art and fine art. And I do think rap is fine art when it's curated and created, and a lot of our artists are doing that. But it gets overlooked as just, it's just music. People they're just like talking. They're not really, it's not a skill set. So it's like an old conversation about a current art form. But I do feel like Detroit artists they're the ones who also are bringing the vibe to the city, right? They're creating the buzz around what we're doing. So it's something else I want to cover and talk about in my role. Okay,
so now let me ask you a question regarding underground artists sticking together. So how do you feel like, this is a Detroit question.
Oh, man. Okay. I'm going to have to get on do I get one phone call or call someone to help me answer it?
Do you feel that artists really support each other, or they could support each other more?
Well, it's a hard question for me because I'm going to be biased. And I'm going to be biased because my experience with working with artists is that there is a lot of support for each other, because I also have experiences outside of Detroit.
Okay.
I've lived the same kind of conversation of, nobody supports each other. I've lived in 4 markets and 4 cities, and I've heard the same conversation. Everybody says the same thing. And it's not to belittle, again, someone's experience, because, again, if you're not connected and you feel isolated, that's a valuable feeling. That's a real feeling.
Right.
A valid feeling. And but my own experience is, and you could even say the word clicks, where people say, they click up. I just feel that at a certain level, you're going to meet your peers like this, right? Lateral. And as you move up, you might have another set of peers. And so if you're at that beginning stage or not as popping or don't got as much motion, you may look up and be like, well, they don't fuck with me. But you haven't worked your way to be lateral.
Put in the work.
And it's not even maybe work. Maybe it's luck. Maybe it's opportunity. Because it could be work. You'd be working really hard and maybe you just ain't got that break yet. I think consistency is really important in this artwork and in the work we're doing. Because it can be a lot of things. It could be like, maybe you just ran to the right person and you got lucky.
Okay, look, now my tequila done kicked in, so I'm going to say how I feel about it.
No, of course. But, so for me, my experience is going to be different.
Sure.
That's why I can understand when somebody's like, people don't fuck with me, they gatekeep. All that exists.
For sure.
But I'm always of the idea of trying to collaborate. And don't get me wrong, there's people I don't fuck with.
Right.
Like, it's just the way, the nature of doing work. And there's
Right.
people that probably don't like me, and that's fine. But the people I do work with, there is a big network of us that all kind of work together.
For sure.
And part of it is for me stepping out of my ego to also, like, 'cause I go to events, I'm like, damn, I'm mad as shit. I didn't plan this shit. This shit is like, bro, this event looks sweet. And I get mad because I didn't come up with the idea or I didn't execute it. Believe me, I've been to a Crowd Freak event and be mad that it's so good. I'm like, damn, this shit's packed, bro. Then I'm looking, I'm like, man. So I have that feeling, but it's more like healthy competition more than
for sure.
wishing on someone's downfall. But again, I have heard the other side where, oh, people don't fuck with me, they don't include me.
But I'm not, like, I'm going to just give
now
another perspective.
More
no, I don't need
now.
no more tequila because then I get to talking crazy. But in the city, to me, and a lot of people don't like this word, but oh well, it's a lot of dick riding that goes on in the city. So far as even
Can I make my call real quick?
Yeah, make your call. Even as like far as with some of the blogs, some of the platforms, it's a lot of artists that they've already made it. Mm-hmm. So you guys don't a lot of the platforms don't highlight some of the upcoming artists who they've seen putting in the work. It's a lot of biased things that go on here in the city of Detroit. People see people out here working, getting numbers, but if they don't fuck with you like that, they not gonna give you the credit that you deserve. And I mean, I understand that sometimes that's just the way shit goes, but it's disheartening sometimes.
I mean, my view on it is, this is just my own attitude, because don't get me wrong, we're left out of conversations, we're left out of events purposely. I know purposely we're left out. And it does make me upset. But at the same time, the reason we created Backwoods and Bonfires was because our artists weren't getting looks.
Right.
Like, we weren't being included.
You created.
Yeah, we weren't.
You made a seat at your own motherfucking table.
We weren't being included in shit.
Right.
And so we kind of found another way to do it, and that's just one festival. Like, we're tied to it. Like, it's a weird thing in the city, because I'm gonna be real. As you produce and you start rising,
for sure,
everybody kind of knows each other. Even if you don't fuck with each other, you know of each other.
Right.
Like, you know who runs what festival, and oh, that's somebody's so and so friend, or they work. And a lot of times we hire in the same people in a sense to help us do our data or our ad spend, or even the staging. Right? It could be the same people, so you're aware of each other. So my attitude always is, if I'm not included, I'm just going to kind of create my own thing. Now, I get how it can be frustrating, though, because there is a certain level of success.
I'm the same way. I'm just going to create my own.
But it is like some fuck shit, right? You can feel it because you know it's happening. And I just think, like, my advice, this is like just to artists that I work with, is just, bro, like, we have to just create our own space. Because if we're not going to be included in those spaces, and I'll be real, a lot of times there's brands that we work with that are bigger than us, and we're kind of brought in back to them because other brands have hired us, and so we're just like, all right, well, you got to work with them. So it's kind of like just to be consistent and try to create our own path. Again, though, that doesn't mean that feeling isn't there, because
of course, right.
I think the other hard part too is, I'll say like this, a lot of people will, DM me or reach out to me, and it's hard for me to even keep up because I'm just like focused on work. But sometimes I'm not even making the decisions. Like, I don't choose who performs on Backwoods. Like, that's not my role. Mm-hmm. Like, my role is to help design the space of Backwoods. That doesn't mean that I don't have any influence or say, but I trust my business partners to better understand the landscape of hip hop and rap than, say, me. And so sometimes people are like, oh, you didn't get me
mad and
yeah, but it's like, yo, that's not even my role, bro. I don't even do that. I don't even make those decisions.
Right.
So I think sometimes it can be confusing, because even if I'm an owner, and being an owner, you have your own companies and you work with other people. Being an owner, but it's also being able to respect your business partners.
For sure.
So I can't just be like, I'm gonna do this and that's it. It's like, bro, I got 4 other people that I work with that may have a better idea of how we're gonna execute shit. So I think there's that too. And then the last thing is, we all work so hard to get to a certain level that, if you're a newer artist and you're like, hey, let's do an event together, there's other steps. At least, so for our work as we are culture creators, we have the nonprofit side. Mm-hmm. That's a better entry point than trying to do some commercial work with us in the beginning. It's better to be like, hey, let's do something together smaller, work our way too. And the other thing is, if you invited me to a show that you produce and you got 100 people there, I'm going to want to fuck with you. Like 100 people. I would say even 30 people. Because as an artist, you're valuable in the sense of like, bro, you can make 30 people out. That, even though it seems like a small number, That's a really valuable addition. Like if I'm throwing an event, there's 300 people, and you bring 30, you're pretty valuable in the sense of like that.
Let's speak on that a little bit too. So, a lot of artists or underground artists, they get mad because they're not getting booked, but they don't bring no people out. So a lot of artists got to understand that as well.
Well, there's a balance, right? So let's say as a booker, somebody who's booking, let's say if I have a black woman violinist,
okay,
I might just book her because has a unique skill set.
Correct.
And there's not that many young black women that play the violin that I know of. I know maybe 3 in the city. Mm-hmm. So you might just get hired as like talent.
For sure.
But when we're talking about rappers, how many rappers do you know? Let's be honest.
Tons.
Okay. So that's where it becomes where like there's so many rappers that then you have to have on the business terms, like what's your differential? Why are you different? And maybe I'll book you because you have some unique element, but really a lot of times when we're doing shows, we're not really making a lot of money. We're trying to produce the best we can. We're trying to take what's in our head as curators and our imagination and make it real. And so sometimes it's like if we have an artist that only brings 30, 40 people, even 20, it's like, bro, you brought people out. I'm going to want to fuck with you. I'm going to fuck with you. Even if it's like, hey, I brought 20, I brought 25, I guarantee you're going to get booked again. Mm-hmm. You will. But it's a hard balance to like talk about, if you want to be booked and then you don't do any effort, you don't even share the flyer because it's going to mess up the aesthetic of your Instagram, the way it looks. You're not going to share it for whatever reason. How can I want to fuck with you?
Right,
because you're not even helping us make the event better.
Right.
So there's a balance, right, between
sure.
that where somebody's very unique and dope. And you might be a rapper that's just really good, and I'm like, oh, I fuck with you because you're dope. You might not bring anybody, but then you're feeling like a skill set. But when you got 400 rappers or singers all kind of doing the same thing, and you're not bringing anybody, I would rather go with somebody a little less talented, but has more drive, more push to get people, than somebody who's super amazing because it doesn't help us.
Right.
Because I don't pay you the same, in a sense, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's the hard part as an artist. And that's why I tell artists to create their own space, their own events. Because even Demasio, I manage Demasio, and I say that very loosely because he's super self-managed. He does his own thing. But he has Nonstop Hip Hop, which is his own brand that he produces events. So as an artist, not only is he getting his own workout, he's helping other artists, but then he's always the one on the show. Because he doesn't do every show, but he could.
Right.
Like even with Backwoods, I do poetry. I've never performed at Backwoods because I'm like, all right, that's not really where I want to be. I want to make sure that the environment looks cool as opposed to like focus on performing that day. So I think there's a balance between being curator, creating your own opportunities, right, and being an artist. Like it's hard to curate too. It's hard to make events.
People don't understand. Like I've done mini shows, I've done concerts, I've booked people. It's a lot of work that goes into it. And then you have somebody who artists, because we know so many artists, you might be cool with them and they think you should have gave them an opportunity just because you guys are cool. It don't work like that. If I know you don't put in the work, like you said, you're not marketing, you're not promoting, you don't bring any people out just because we're cool. I can't just put you on the show.
And then also, like, the hard part is that, yes, there's opportunities to make a lot of money in this business. Mm-hmm. But generally, at a level where you're coming up and you're building, a lot of times, you're breaking even, or you might be making $500. Nobody wants to say that because you don't want to pretend that you're making less. Because on online, it's like you live in the best life you could live. But that's the internet world.
Alice in Wonderland.
You know what I mean? But in the real life, you're in the back splitting up $500 with your business partners. Like, damn, all right, it was a good show. It looked great online. The lines were nuts. But your expenses were like, basically 70% of the budget.
The door person, security, all that.
And think about like even ad spend on marketing. If you're really doing it at a high level, you're spending money on marketing.
Ads,
you're spending money on that. If you're doing it at a high level, you're doing that. So I think the difficulty, and again, I'm an artist too, right? I do poetry. You can't, like, there was no lane for poetry when I was coming up, so I just tried to start my own stuff. Started my own poetry series, just shooting music videos, going on the college circuit, self-publishing my books. I did 3 albums so far, and every time I'd print my own, and I would go and sell them hand to hand before, streaming was in existence. So I have sympathy for that. But at the same time, if you believe in your vision and you believe in what you're doing, and even if you feel like you're not getting looks, to me, it's just to keep consistent.
For sure.
Like, I like to be invited to stuff. Like, I like when an artist sends me a flyer 3 or 4 times to remind me, like, I'm doing a show, come out. Because I want to meet the next wave of whoever it is, whatever pocket they're in. That's just me, right? Some people feel like it bugs them. To me, it doesn't, because I have a cultural brand, and I want to stay relevant, and I want to stay fresh, and I want to understand what young people are listening to. I don't even have to fuck with the music to understand why someone... I could go to a show and not fuck with the music and see the crowd and be like, oh, my brain is like, I understand why that's popular. So...
Let me tell you one of your best shows I went to. I went to when you booked Pac-Man.
Oh, yeah.
That show in Southwest.
Yeah.
It was slapping.
Yeah.
That was a good show.
Yeah.
That was in what, like 2021, 2020, something like that?
That was like a really big show. I think that might have been when we might have been doing Henny and Hamburgers at one time with that, I think. Yeah. But so I think like, so to me is like, as an artist, if you believe in what you're doing, it's about consistency.
For sure.
You got to lock in. You almost have to have a delusional approach and belief in your work, because nobody is going to believe in you more than you. Even your manager, even your mama, it don't matter. You have to have a delusional belief, and if you're consistent, I believe that work will pay off. And consistency means not only just doing shows, because you might do a lot of shows, but you're not networking, right? You're not going to the... Like, for me, I tell all the young folks that I work with to always send me stuff that's happening in the city, because I might not even be on that algorithm. And they're sending me stuff, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even know this was happening today.
Right.
And, you know, when we talked about sponsorship earlier, right, like even for us, we don't have a huge, like, viral following. My personal page, my company pages, but what we have is real people that show up to our events.
For sure.
And that's the difference between getting opportunities to have some stuff sponsored, but then also on the return side, I go to everybody's stuff. Like, half of my job is going to things. And like,
for sure.
And then going to be like,
you're genuinely a good person and you reciprocate. So
I feel that too. I feel like there's some of that.
What helps.
I feel like there's some of that too, right? If you're not a snake, if you're not cheating people, if you're trying to be as honest as possible.
I fucks with Reyes. Reyes is good people.
I appreciate it.
You sent me. Do you remember that one party you guys had at Prime and Proper in the basement?
Yes, I do remember that.
We had to go down there. We had to lock our phones up and shit. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's
Reyes
part of like,
always send me. Like I said, I met him in 2019. We've been locked in ever since. Any special things that come in town, he sends me an invite. All of that. He good people for sure.
I appreciate it
for sure. I like what you're doing for the artists in the city. It's a great thing, and it's not a lot of things like you said. They've cut a lot of funding for the arts. You guys provide an environment, so people that artists that want to join We Are Culture Creators. Do you have a website for them?
Yeah, so all you got to do is go to We Are Culture Creators on Instagram. That's at We Are Culture Creators. Obviously, it's all one word spelled out. Our website is weareculturecreators.com. The easiest way to tap in with us, we do a few series with. So we do a series called The Listening, and that's with Jack Daniels. And you can see that posted. We might post that once a quarter, so once every 3 months, maybe sometimes twice. That's a real simple event because it's free. It's a complimentary liquor from Jack Daniels. And what we do is we bring 7 to 10 artists in. You play 2 original tracks that are unreleased.
Awesome.
And it's just a room sitting together, playing music, and then just talking to each other. At the end.
Awesome.
So we also do another series called Audio Jack, which is more DJ focused. We do that in partnership with the Hollywood Casino in Greektown. We go up to the 27th floor. They have a suite up there that we operate once every few months. We do something up there. And tapping in with us on those. The other thing is we do a lot of community stuff. It's really just showing up and being a part of it. Culture Credit is a very informal kind of space. And to us, you know, a lot of our young folks might end up working with Culture Credits and they end up at Crowd Freak, or they might end up at Motor City Street Dance Academy. For us, it's like not so much to keep every artist that we work with. It's like, yo, find your family, find your group, find what makes the most sense for you, and build. So if you follow us on Instagram, we post, you know, we do about 100 events a year in the city, and just come out and meet people, talk to people, introduce yourself, you know, connect with us, send your music, because to us, we want to help. Outside of the company side, on the LLC, on the nonprofit side, we're really trying to focus on creating access and equity for young artists of color in the city, and to provide a platform for them to be able to make art in Detroit, buy a home in Detroit, live in Detroit if they want to raise a family here, but to be able to not have to go to Atlanta or New York or Chicago or LA or Miami or Houston, but can stay here in the city.
Awesome. Now for the Backwoods and Bonfire for this year, is information out yet?
Yeah, so we do have it. All you got to do is on Instagram. If you go to Reyes Poetry, you can click the link there. That's my personal one, Reyes Poetry. You can click the link to Backwoods and Bonfire's Instagram. It has the dates out, and we haven't released like the artists or anything yet because we're still in process on finishing some contracts.
Okay.
But I think for us growing that festival, it's been a part of, we're hoping now it's becoming a part of like the conversation in Detroit.
For sure.
And, yesterday we did an event with Mary Sheffield and, hopefully whoever becomes mayor, I'm supporting Mary. I think, she has the right mindset around music, art, and culture, and we hope the future of our city keeps that in mind, and Backwoods is one of those earmarks for us that keeps the culture of Detroit alive and present and growing.
For sure. Shout your social medias out.
So at Reyes Poetry, really simple, Reyes Poetry. At We Are Culture Creators spelled out. If you click any of those, you'll see all the links to all the stuff I do, from Visit Detroit to Jack Daniels to Backwoods and Bonfires to Fiesta Vibes Detroit, which is some of our Latino programming. All those links are up on those pages.
Awesome. Any final thoughts?
No, thank you for the invitation and hosting me. As soon as I DM'd you and say, hey, I'm trying to visit more people and I see your show and I want to be on it.
For sure.
You reply like, yo, come on through. So we appreciate
it.
And keep working, man. Just keep doing it. This is a great setup. If you get a chance to visit, make sure if you out there watching, make sure you hit those DMs for her and try to get on the show. It's a great experience to be able to hang out.
Same mindset. We love helping upcoming underground artists get the exposure they need. It's fulfilling.
It is.
I love to see some of my people come up, do their thing.
That's the thing. Some of this stuff is like beyond money, right?
For sure.
There's a level of like fulfilling to see. Like when I get the same feeling from doing poetry that I get doing a show and watching my young folks that I work with on stage doing their thing.
I be feeling like they my little babies.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the young ladies, they call me Big Sis. They DM me. We talk on the phone. They hit me up about all type of stuff. So it's just very fulfilling to see them grow, do their craft, elevate, all of that. So that's what's up. So I appreciate you for coming by.
Thank you. Make sure you check out for the Head of Duda.
Make sure y'all check it out. Let me hold it. Let me hold it. I'm gonna get this on my mobile bar too, y'all. Yeah. And don't forget, Electric Elevation has her own pre-roll premium cannabis. Get at me for that as well. But again, it has been great talking to Reyes. He's been doing great things in the city for artists, just everybody in the community. Again, he gave you his Instagram, the website, everything. Look forward to the upcoming events and Backwoods and Bonfire. They're going to announce their artists soon. But, do you have the date yet?
Yeah, it's July. I don't want to misquote it. Just go on there.
Go on there and look.
I know it's in
July.
Yeah, we moved it. It's like mid-July. I think it's either the 19th or the 21st.
Mid-July.
Don't be mad at me, Kirk. My bad.
All right. Peace.